FireWatch, a walking simulator from 2016, tells a story about a bloke who takes on the lonely job of a park ranger in order to give himself space to work out his issues, while at the same time forming a verbal relationship with his supervisor. The game was well written, well received, and sparked more jealousy among indie developers than a billionaire playboy born with the rare condition of having two supermodels permanently glued around his cock. Fast forward 7 years and a quick stop to the cloning tubes comes Under the Waves, a swimming simulator about a different bloke who takes on the lonely job of a deep-sea oil rig engineer in order to give himself space to work out his issues while at the same time forming a verbal relationship with his supervisor. So yeah, obviously Under the Waves nicked the homework from FireWatch the same way Jeffrey Dahmer nicked the organs from his house guests, but hey, who am I to judge when it comes to shamelessly ripping off others? The game follows the adventures of Stan, nature-loving diving enthusiast from the proud state of the Uncanny Valley, and the runner-up to last year's contest for World's Saddest Man, who somehow lands himself a job maintaining a billion-dollar oil rig owned by Unitrench, some sort of an energy tycoon from a dystopian future, whose company's strategic goals lies anywhere between harvesting whales for oil and strangling baby harp seals. You would imagine that there'll be plenty of measures put in place to avoid leaving such a valuable project in the hands of a suicidally depressed nature lover, such as an obvious conflict of interest, some basic common sense, or even just a simple psychiatric evaluation. But regardless, your job is to monitor the facility's infrastructure, salvage materials from local wrecks, and repair any broken equipment you find. Yep, that's right, it's the usual suspects. Everything from crafting, exploring, and puzzle solving, which as far as walking simulators go is as tradition as alcohol is during football riots. But despite sticking to the same formula that's worked since the time shooters figured out how to point guns at enemies, the gameplay is unfortunately still let down by just how badly it's put together, with no particular design element truly complementing another, as if the entire game was made by 3 different developers separated by several electrified fences and who all hated one another. The game tries to simultaneously nick ideas from other titles like Subnautica, Lodonaut, and Asboo, but in doing so ends up being inferior to all 3. Like, one could easily get the impression that a lot of effort was made into creating an environment filled with sunken salvage and wildlife, which players are free to collect or photograph for either crafting or fapping during those long, lonely nights at sea, but unfortunately there was just no real incentive to do any of it. Most of the crafting are for items that are plenty in abundance. The local wildlife never shows you any appreciation regardless of how many plastic six-packs, shipping containers, or naval mines you remove, and the frequency in which animals appear eliminates any reason to bother capturing one on film. The magic of photographing an elusive blue whale is worth less than the paper it's printed on if you're bumping into it more often than your morning wood. So alright, you say, the gameplay was put together like a straw house in a wind tunnel, but what about the writing? Was there anything there that was redeemable? Well, let's see. Throughout the game, the writer attempts to paint Stan as a troubled family man looking to escape from his problems back at home, but rather than providing him with a series of mundane tasks which could both give the character time to self-reflect and the writer a chance to add in some much-needed backstory, the game instead insists on miscasting Stan as a star of a Roland Emmerich disaster movie, having him constantly rush between reactivating critical life support systems or making urgent hull repairs. I had to roll my eyes during a scene where Stan had a mental breakdown over his late daughter, literally while standing a few meters from a dangerously unstable nuclear reactor, making you just want to slap the guy until he finally gets his shit together or at least starts taking his medication again. And these issues only continue to pile on the further we go into the game when Stan ditches the whole broken father archetype entirely and transforms into Captain Planet the eco-terrorist as soon as he discovers that Unitrench had been secretly building a network of underwater supervillain labs, after which any semblance of sense is left crying at the airport while the rest of the game departs for the circus on the nonsense planet. So, that being said, would you like to know what evil schemes Unitrench were planning this whole time? Well, so the fuck would I, cause the writers kinda forgot to pay off that whole subplot and just decided to go back to telling the story of Stan being a broken father again. So, in case you're still wondering, that would be a no to your question. And as for the dialogue, listen developers, what made FireWatch so memorable was watching the strengthening relationship between Henry and Delilah, which was something that was completely absent from Under the Waves. Like, I never once got the sense that Stan and his supervisor had any real connection, partly because the story rarely slowed down enough for them to actually have the chance to talk, but also because the two of them just felt so distant and almost uncomfortable to even talk about their personal lives in the first place. Like, seriously, take a freaking chemistry class together or something. Overall, this wasn't a bad game. Yeah, it did annoy me at times, particularly with the messy writing and its clumsy submarine controls, but at least I understood what the developers were going for here. And while I don't like to make a habit of offering free advice, here are some basic common sense to help improve your game. How about you instead set your story on the site of an oil spill? Have your characters be a bunch of volunteers who all showed up because they shared a common passion for wildlife wildlife conservation. While they are cleaning up the area, the local wildlife can begin to return, giving your players something to photograph, play with, and most importantly, an incentive to clean up in the first place, as well as room to listen to your character's dialogue and backstories. And there you go, that wasn't so hard. Now you've got a solid concept with plenty of opportunities to explore different environments, interact with animals, and tell a character story about a bloke looking for some resolution while forming a close friendship. I unfortunately can't do much for you on the part regarding the nightmare sequences where Stan gets attacked by fish while looking for his kid, as I have no clue what you were going on with that imagery. I mean, as far as I can tell, his daughter died in a car crash, right? Why the hell would Stan be dreaming about sharks and whales? What, did he crash into one of those mobile aquariums or something?